the cloud, and I'm going to ask Carol to read the mission statement.
Okay. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at all HPH meetings is voluntary. All discussions that take place at affiliate-led meetings are confidential. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Zoom meetings run by HPH leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of HPH meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members. So we ask that you take from them their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Carol. I'm going to read the bios. My sister, Judith Hancox, and her degrees, MSW, LC, SW, and BCETS. Judi, you'll have to explain those later. Judi has been specializing in holistic trauma recovery for over 3 decades. She created Shiomi Therapy, integrating EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, energy psychology, and energy medicine techniques that help accelerate our innate ability to process and heal from traumatic events and PTSD. After the transition of her godchild, Carly, my daughter, in 2013, she has been focusing on helping parents heal, and since 2020, she has been facilitating monthly Shiomi group healing circles on the second Monday of every month. Nancy Orlin Weber is a minister. She is a retired nurse, author of The Life of a Psychic Detective and All Nature Speaks, Conversations with Pets and Wildlife. She is a psychic, an animal communicator, and psychic detective with honorary badges. Nancy's books are on Amazon, and her website is nancyorlinweber.com. I was telling the girls before the meeting also, Nancy is a dear friend, and she was the officiant and actually married Tony and I when we got married in 2009. Lisa, I'll ask you to talk about tonight's meeting, give the description, and then if you would turn it over to Judi and Nancy.
Of course, we're very fortunate. Tonight's meeting is on becoming shining light parents with sacred sense and senses. Sacred sense are known throughout the world for creating a high frequency of love that reveals the world of spirit. St.Therese of Lisieux loved, I hope I pronounced that correctly, loved flowers and is known for bestowing roses. Oh my gosh, look, I picked a rose background. And is known for bestowing roses and rose fragrances to those who pray to her. Roses are a symbol of love. I'm getting teary. And one of the highest energy frequencies on earth. Shining light parents know they are messengers of spirit and become passionately involved in carrying their children's messages to the world. Love is what brings us here. Love is what connects us through our senses. Nancy and Judi teach ways of raising our spiritual vibration to sense and open doorways between our spirit and the world our children live in. We can learn to shift our physical form to enter the loving spiritual world of our children, revealing that never-ending bridge of connection. And I would like to welcome Nancy and Judi. Truly, I had not read that before I picked this background, and you guys saw me pick the background. So, of course, our children are here with us. Nancy and Judi, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the LCSW is just licensed clinical social worker, which is kind of getting to be my past because I'm doing mostly volunteer and group work now. And I'm so excited to have Nancy here because I've wanted her to come for a long time to share her expertise in what she knows about raising our frequency and using our senses as our sixth sense and the sense of essential oils. My part in this, and I have to say, I would like to say first that I'm honored to be here because out of all the decades I've studied spiritual techniques and methods and took workshops and all the spiritual retreats I've been on, I sense that helping parents heal is one of the most spiritually rich communities I've ever worked with. It really is. And that has mostly to do with our children and ourselves and being part of this community. You know, in yoga, they say that the truth is one and paths are many. And everyone who presents here at Helping Parents Heal, I've seen many of the presenters, and every week there's another presenter. And we all have a unique way of saying the same thing, the same truth. You know, we're all here to say the same truth. We are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. And we're all connected in that light of love. That's why we're here. And, you know, a greater part of us, this seems to help a lot of people to know that because we're an embodied spirit, most of our spirit is really not in our body. It's mostly in a higher dimension. You know, we are with our children right now and just don't know it because our brain is a consciousness reducer. You know, it just, you know, we focus through our senses, our five senses here, and we forget the greater sense of why we're here. So our child comes to us as a teacher, a wise soul, usually a wise old soul, and they challenge us to remember who we really are. So my work is, and my part of helping parents heal in this community has been to help us release trauma, because trauma is what blocks us from the connection. It lowers our frequency. It when we're suffering with shock and the trauma of what happened, that whole experience, you know, we call it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because it keeps us in that lower vibration of sorrow and grief and just the traumatic moment of what happened. And so being in that trauma all the time, which shouldn't be confused with our normal emotions, you know, the sadness and the grief we experience and all the emotions we go through, they come and they go and they come and they go. That's what our emotions are made for. They make us do something. They challenge us to and motivate us to do something. That's what we do, you know, that's us as human beings. But trauma is what gets shocked and locked into our nervous system, into our energy system, into our brain and our body and our spirit. So it's in our body, mind, and spirit. And Shiomi, you know, when I developed Shiomi, it's because I understood, having, you know, studied spirit for a long time, that, you know, we're more than the body, mind, and psychology is about the body, mind, but our spirit is most of is who we are. And we have, you know, generally the major 7 chakras. We have 12 meridians. We have 2 vessels, major vessels, and minor chakras and minor vessels. We have so many energy systems. As Nancy knows, every cell in our body is an energy system. So when we have trauma, it gets locked and it loops into different energy systems. So each organ in our body flows with a different energy system, and each organ holds a different emotion, actually. So when that trauma gets stuck and it locks and it's trapped like a hologram, it just keeps repeating over and over, like that broken record. And when I work with trauma with individuals and in the group, if you've been to the group, you know, I call it gestalting the energy, using our senses to focus on the memory that brings the emotional charge. It brings the feeling and the body sensation. And as we get deeper and deeper and more subtle into the body sensation of the energy itself, that energy takes on a whole life. It's a form. It's not us. It has a texture. It has an odor sometimes. It has a sound, the image. All of our senses, we can sense the energy as a being. And that's how it makes it easy to release, as you see it as a separate entity and not ourself. So it's really important to know that, all the emotions we have, the thousands of variations that we have, they're supposed to come and go. But trauma is not something we want to keep. And I call it the shadows, the trauma, the shadows over the chakras, right? Or the shadows over the energy system. Because it's truly like we're sitting in a cloudy, it could be a dark cloud, it could be a gray cloud, it could even be a white cloud. But we're in this cloud of energy, and it's blocking our light. Just like the clouds block the sun. The sun's always shining above the clouds, but we don't realize it. Sometimes we get into a bad mood when it's gray and it's raining, or it's, the weather is a bad pattern, or traumatic energy. The sun's always shining above it all. We just have to raise our frequency, raise our vibration and see it. And by releasing the trauma and releasing those clouds, it releases the blockage of the sun, of our light, of our shining light. We want to be shining light parents. We want to have the light of our children shining through us, and every day as a daily experience, shining their light. They're part and parcel of ourselves. So Fritz Perls had said, lose your mind and come to your senses. He's the Gestalt guru. And that's because our mind, our thoughts, they're not us. And we cannot heal trauma by talking about it. That's just going into the left brain, the logical reasoning, higher reasoning, has nothing to do with the emotions. The right hemisphere, it's the amygdala that absorbs the emotion, and that's in the right hemisphere. It's the brainstem, the nervous system. The amygdala holds the emotion, and it's the amygdala that releases the emotion when the trauma is ready to release. But we have to do some interventions to do that. So my part in the interventions is what I learned with EMDR, the eye movement, bilateral brain stimulation, to go into the right hemisphere and release it, and to use our senses in Gestalt, to Gestalt the energy, to actually see it as another entity, that it could be released. And to know that when we release trauma, we are not releasing our child. What I hear as a constant theme in the group work and even individual work is that parents feel they have to hold on to the traumatic moments and the trauma of the whole experience, or if they lose it, it's disrespecting our child. Losing the trauma actually helps us be closer to our child. By releasing that cloud, by feeling the light, we actually have a deeper and a stronger relationship with our child. The connection gets better. And it's subtle, sometimes it's very subtle. So we have to be peaceful in order to have that experience. And I talked to one of the parents who came to the group. I just want to give you an example. She allowed me to share this story tonight. I just happened to call her because when people come to the group, we ask them to please give us your disturbance level for the one memory you want to release, the traumatic memory. And on that 0 to 10 scale, 0 would be I'm peaceful in heaven, and 10 would be the worst you could possibly feel. Most people come, of course, as a 10, 9 or 10. And dramatically, after 2 hours, the consensus has been, because we're keeping records of this, at the end of a healing circle, it has dropped dramatically for most people. It's dropped dramatically sometime from a 10 to a 1, 10 to a 0. But the woman I spoke to today, was a 10 and she left at a 5. And I know when you're at a 5, it feels better than a 10, but it's still traumatic energy, and it's going to block your ability to take the positive vision and do your home healing with the positive vision to reinforce that. So when I reached out to her, she said, it was a 5. I mean, but she felt a great release. Interesting thing though, the very next morning, she had her first dream visit from her son. And it was just, to me, that just makes my heart just, smile and get happy. And she had her second dream visit last week. And in the dream visit, her son told her, this wise soul, because he was 2 years old when he developed leukemia. He had cancer. And he lived with cancer from 2 until 18. And he was mostly in the hospital over the period of those 16 years. And she said it was in segments of 4 years. And when he was 8, the doctor said he is not going to live. You must prepare yourself. You must prepare him. And she didn't want to talk about the afterlife or anything about death with her child, of course. So they kept it from him. Well, at 8, he said to his mom, he just picked it up and he said, I'm not ready to go yet. I still have, they're going to find something for me. And they were going to put him into an induced coma and help him relieve the pain and, and go. And once he said that, she said, oh, well, you tell the doctors. So he told the doctors. And the doctor said, well, you know what, there's something new. It's experimental, but because he feels this way, let's try it. Well, it gave him another 10 years. And those 10 years, she said there were 2 years that were very happy. But the whole point of my story about this child is, Mom said he was the happiest, sweetest, funniest, always laughing, always smiling. And he meditated for the last year or two. At 17, 18, he wanted to just meditate day and night. And he was always laughing, like the Buddha, the Buddha. And the Buddha has said, a broken heart is an open heart. And her heart broke, but open to him. And so he left, but he was that wise soul. So when he came in the dream visit, he reminded her that they had a contract and that he was there for a purpose, as all our children are teaching us. This is a temporary human experience. And when we get down to the subtleties of it, the trauma, I'm just here to say the trauma needs to be released so we can go more and more into the higher frequencies and our senses. So I'm so happy Nancy's here tonight because I've been excited to have her come for a long time to share this. We've known each other for over 30 years, and she's been my mentor in expanding consciousness, and raising spiritual consciousness. And her life on this planet, her work on this planet is just that, I believe, and I know is all about raising consciousness and helping people heal and helping people develop their senses and their sensibility. So Nance, I'm really looking forward to you sharing what you know about essential oils, as the subtlety of it, and not just the subtlety, but the overwhelming ability to go into the brain and do their God-given programmed work.
I have no idea what I'll say. Okay, so let me share with you a few things of how I got there, with your permission. We all have different kind of traumas, as Judi said. This is a common denominator here. Because I had been an attempted murder victim, when I got the opportunity, when police asked my help as a psychic, I jumped in, and I've been very blessed, I think, in helping put a minimum of 13 murderers, serial rapists. Can't talk about the federal, but I've done a lot of the work, hundreds of cases, and help put away a lot of people. One of the ways I do it is to talk to the murdered victim. Sometimes it's to talk to the murderer. And what I learned very clearly is there is a certain state everybody can be in, not just people who claim to be able to be psychic. Everyone can be in that state. That is a state I call fusion of the soul with all souls. How do I get a murderer to tell me where he buried the evidence? I cannot judge him. I'd like to. As a person, I will, but not when I'm looking to help the outcome. But in its own way, it translates into how do you get an outcome that will bring some peace to you? Unless you can move into a completely soul to soul connection. Well, in a body, it's not so easy because we have what I think of as the illusion we're not connected. We see ourselves, we see the end of the skin. We look out, we see stuff everywhere, which reminds us that the chair is separate from the table, that the roof is separate from the floor. So it's that separation that locks in a lot and makes it difficult for us to maintain a high frequency. It's the personal connections that aren't so easy. As you said about emotions, they flow, they move, right? But in the immediacy of a trauma, I'll tell you straight, I don't know anything to help. I have sat with people whose child had just died. I've sat with quite a few of them, right within the hours, within the day. And all I can do is offer them scent and music, because I want something to get inside the brain to quiet it down so that they could at least maybe in a few days start sleeping. Right? And if they want to make a purpose of a life, which I believe, and I believed with Carly strongly, I was so glad when I could feel her presence, that the way we make a life later is to make a purpose, to bring that child's heart with us everywhere. And so I lost two friends when I was young, very young. And to me, they've always been with me. They need to be with me because I need them to remind me of how important it is to stay connected to what's real. They're more real than the people I meet half the time. So how do we do that when your grief is so strong? Well, as Judi so put it so well, there is a pathway of trauma that was well established. We understand that in the body mind. Body mind is one thing and one word now. We know that the brain gets its information from the gut. That's why we call it gut instinct. But if the gut's not healthy, the brain's not going to get the correct information. If the brain's not healthy, then the nervous system is not going to fire correctly and give the right signals. So while we're in this form and you're grieving, there needs to be some self-help tools, I call them. I was permanently disabled because of what happened in my life. I learned when I had no hope to be out of a wheelchair or be out of a body brace. I walked away from everything and said, I believe in solutions. I just don't know what they are right away. So I went looking for self-help tools. I didn't have money. So it was, besides that, I always felt, well, it's great if you can afford to go to a therapist, but maybe you're so traumatized, you can't even get up and get out of bed and go into a car, particularly when you're in the middle of grief, right? Or you're not well and you have grief on top of it. And for me, I think the most important thing for people whose hearts are so open because they're so broken, you serve a better purpose than many people on this earth to serve this broken world because you care so deeply. And so I sought for myself first, self-help tools. And I came across, out of a book, Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain, music. And it was the first research that showed that you could stay in both hemispheres listening to certain sounds. And this is before we have all the frequencies and measurement in that way about music. And so they were the first. It was called Super Learning. And I get to meet the authors and become friends. And I created my own and I put it on my blog. But along with that, I started doing a lot of creative visualization and passing it on to the people who were grieving. Well, that worked too, because I know that if you think of male and female, right hemisphere, left hemisphere, feminine, masculine, intuitive, assertive, blended, practical application. And practical application is how our soul and spirit connect to the other side practically, because fear will stop it. So I don't look like a fun person when I am working. In fact, I can look pretty cold. And the reason is that I have to suspend everything to be more soul than form, to forget my form. I'll pick it up afterwards. And so how to stay at that level when, one, you care so deeply to do it. Now, I didn't care like you cared, because you're living with something I've never had to live with. I've had to live with, will I survive? I was near death. I lived. So my purpose for me is different than yours, but it's all the same at the end, that you need to stay at a high frequency to give yourself a chance to make that bridge easy. Because it's like 51% here on earth, 49% there, and then you need to switch it. If you can see in a dream, as Judi pointed out, it means what part of you is experiencing that? That's not your body. It's in kind of suspended animation, if you will. It shut down most of its functions. So what part? That's the part you can't touch. That's your soul. So I use a lot of tools at home, and I keep them handy for everybody who's grieving, because I want them to know. So how scent got into it is when I recognize, and there are certain things, because we're recording, I am not permitted to say because of the FDA, but I can walk around it. So listen carefully. I'm a certified clinical aromatherapist who studied chemistry and run certification courses. So I need to be very careful. What I am saying to you is, your olfactory system is the shortest road to your brain and the fastest, 22 seconds. It's faster than your eyes, faster than your ears, faster than your tongue. It's faster than anything else. So what do you smell? What do you breathe in? My first suggestion is to understand that synthetics interfere. We know where they go. We know where they sit. Petrochemical industry, synthetics, personal care products, everything. Household cleaners, all of it. It sits, among other places, in what we call the handles or the receptors sites, which are the doorways into cells. And where do they sit mostly? In the nervous system, the petrochemicals. So wouldn't you think, if you want clarity, if you can, if you're not in the midst of the deepest grief and you have some relief, you want to assess and stop burdening the system so that it's freer. You want it freed up. I always think that this form is, pardon me, but my machinery while I'm here. But my soul is the governor. My soul is the boss. It's the instrument I've got as my form, my body, mind. It's my instrument. It's not me. And so when I treat it that way, it's easier to go to the other side. It's easier to stay clear. The hardest job I believe anyone has is to be the parent of a child who's not here or missing. And I've worked with a huge amount of missing children and parents, hundreds. And I know they never will have an answer, many of them. But they can still need to learn how to feel the other side, wherever that child may be, alive or not. So I'm saying to you, if you look around, I think of it as unburden your system, because your system is the conduit for you to be less involved in a sluggish system neurologically. I think that's key to be able to do this. I have been, I guess, I can't think that far back, 55 years or so. I have lived a very clean diet and clean care products and everything. I'm a nut on it. But I know that you need to unburden the system because one other aspect, deep grief maintained too long, in time, you will pay a hefty price physically. If not, it may be emotionally, but definitely physically. The body takes the beating. So how can you go and talk to the other side if you are so burdened down? So for me, I want everyone to have enough energy, have enough strength to work through the hardest part first. I listened to Irene and from 9 years ago to now, right? And over time. So any of you who know her that long, you know she still lives with it, of course, and adores Carly all the time. But the way you live with your loss matters. So when it comes to using scent, I only use one company because I have done my research. I can't convince anybody I don't want to. It's not my job. But I have been to laboratories and farms worldwide. I've looked at soil content. I look at everything. I am a fanatic, and my husband is a real scientist. 13 patents. And his grandfather was a farmer who hybrid everything. We know a lot of the field and we check everything. And I do have 2 badges. And they were given to me for cases I solved. And so I'm an investigator. And so I have investigated every company on the market. And I'd like to throw most of them out into the ocean for cheating on everybody, because synthetics are part of it. So the other thing I'm going to very just hint at, there's something within all cells that can be damaged. Real essential oils will never damage anything, but they have to be absolutely without anything else, including any material used in the preparation. Only stainless steel and glass until you open a bottle. And you have to know how to open it and use it. When you do, something can occur quickly. It's called harmonizing. So think of, I can remember when I was paralyzed because my central nervous system is injured. So when something happens like Lyme, my body takes it in the central nervous system. I'm paralyzed. So there I am lying down paralyzed. What did I want? I wanted essential oils, digestive, and lots of enzymes to kill off whatever the Lyme, and music. I wanted peace. I wanted to keep the frequency harmonized. They can't push my frequency, but they can harmonize with the memory in all my cells and the memory of normal frequency when it's feeling good. It's going to harmonize. Well, you can take the junkiest scent, the cheapest one you buy, and you will still feel something because of the scent. But then go to a garden of aromatic plants. It's a different world. That scent is exquisite. But then the essential oils are about 1,000 times more powerful. No joke. There are what we call ingestible scent. And if they are ingestible and super, super special, fine, we know that they will never have to go through the liver because they sacrifice themselves to clean up everything. They digest what isn't supposed to be there. They can identify what is not contributing to the best of the cell function. So I won't go to any others other than say ingestible. Imagine if you are post the shock, the immediate shock, and you cannot sleep. what music would you put on? And what scent would comfort you? Well, certainly the scent of your beloved, right? That's part of it. But also there are certain scent that will bring emotions into a realm of, as Judy said, it's that emotion and then another emotion, and we move. It moves it off that fence it's sitting on because you don't know what to do because you're in shock. You know, shock will put you on what I call the fence in some ways. You don't know what to do. You're frozen. That immediacy. But once the immediacy is over, what's the best thing that can happen for you is to feel the presence of your lost one, right? They're not lost. You think they are in the shock, and you have to regain. So I'm going to stop for a moment and ask one, if you have any thoughts or questions, or is there something on the chat, Irene, that we need to discuss?
I don't see anything right now. Does anybody have any questions? Anything they'd like to ask? Either Nancy or Judi? You could put it in the chat. I can't see all your hands, but you can raise your hand. I can unmute you if you'd like to.
Or I'd like you to,
Yeah.
if you could share when you first, because you were against
Right.
oils, everybody's trying to take,
Oh,
and you were against it for a
totally.
long time. But when you were ill and your friend came over for the first
Oh, no,
time,
no, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So my prognosis many years ago, I was 25 when I almost died. They told me I had 8 hours to live. I walked away and I did self-healing for about a year. Doesn't matter. I kept looking for everything I could do. I wore a full body brace and many years go by and I'm doing better. I'm only in a wheelchair every so often. I'm only paralyzed once in a while. I learned how to get myself up. I never had help along the way until I went to a chiropractor occasionally when I could afford it. Long come the essential oils one day. I said no to all of them. I ran holistic health festivals for the state of New Jersey for 11, 12 years. I created it. I created a nonprofit. And I said no to everything. Everybody wanted to give me pounds of stuff because we had famous people come in. And I kept saying no. And then my friend who helped create the nonprofit, her husband's an acupuncturist, Chinese medical doctor, called me and said, "Oh, we need to come over and put some essential oils on you." And I said, hell no. That was my first thought. She said, "Well, we're coming over. It'll only take 20 minutes. I said, "Don't you dare." So they came over. And there was chaos here. And at that moment, I was able to lay down in pain. I had my spine twists and it comes off the base. So I had body spasms every night and every day. And so they put the oils on me, and within 5 minutes, I knew that since age 19, I had fascia that contracted all the time. I no longer did. And I stood up and I said, who, how, what, where, how? And so I did see others. I'm very sensitive to input of any kind of thing. And so others had introduced me to things and I pulled away. I said, no, thank you. I could smell the non-authenticity in that bottle, but this was different. And immediately I knew it was going in areas, and I didn't know that it was capable of it, but it was so intensely beautiful. So which oils are best to use for grief?
Yes, and some there were a few questions about specific oils, and people,
Sure.
so many of us have suffered with insomnia, and someone was asking if lavender oil is good for insomnia.
Depends. Yeah, it depends. So think this way, no two snowflakes are alike, no two people here are alike. What will work for one may not work for another, because this is not Western medicine. Holistic means we don't know everything in you at the moment. We don't know everything in your body. We don't know what you've gone through today. We don't know whether you've had a lot of caffeine. We don't know whether you have a lot of sugar. Do you have it at night? I don't know all that about each person unless we talk, right? So the idea I'm saying is, yeah, lavender works for some people and it doesn't work for others. And where would you put it? So there are several different ones we use. One of the first ones I use to help everybody is a blend called Peace and Calming. So if you want, Judy, you need to put in the link to your ID or Bill's right now, because people are asking. And then you can always put it under Carly's Kids
We will do
Okay.
that.
Foundation. Right.
And I think, Nancy, also, if you could just talk a little bit of how the oils impact the body, what it does to the brain when you,
No, I'd love
you know.
to, but I can't.
Okay.
I'd love to. Okay, so think of a switch. I have to walk around this carefully. Think of a light switch. You turn it on, you turn it off. Well, in the body, we turn on healthy emotions or we turn them off. When those healthy emotions are turned off, peace and calming can turn that off. I can't tell you the details right now. I would be
repeat
happy
that?
to do all this again in a non-recorded, if you don't mind, Irene, at some point
Mhm.
where we can have all the questions you want and I will help. As a medical intuitive, I love doing that. That was my first work when I was 19. As a nurse, doctors gave me permission to tell them what I saw in the body. I was right. They kept letting me do it. They kept asking me. So I like doing that because I know what, for one person, lavender will work fantastically. But the lavender in the stores, you have to understand, I grow lavender, Lavandula angustifolia, which is what lavender they have. But Young Living is the only company on the planet who has the original root crop grown all over the world in various farms that has that value, I'll call it, the constituents that can regulate some things
Okay.
and maybe give you a peaceful time, but it may not. It's great for the skin, the real one. It's great for other things. Like if I get sneezes at certain times of the year, lavender will stop it. So I can't say why. Certain claims were not allowed because it falls in the personal care industry, like your shampoo. It's not regulated. None of that is. So anybody can say anything and they're not allowed to make medical claims.
Mm.
Okay, so when sleep, grief, bear with me, peace and calming is exactly what it says. And how they understand that is, besides laboratory and development of it over years, the first trials that were taken were hundreds of people. And I was blessed with some of the other things, like there's a blend called Ruta Vala, Rutavala, smells like stinky socks a bit. Seriously. But Ruta, valerian, and lavender together probably puts most people to sleep fast. And it goes in the back of the neck gently. Now, essential oils, just so if you don't know, here's a bottle of Boswellia sacra, the highest grade of frankincense in the planet. And if I take a hand and cup it and angle the oil, one drop into the palm, that's all you need is one drop. If you had an herb called Boswellia sacra, which doesn't exist, you would need a minimum of 90 capsules of it to come near some of the properties of an oil. So I have a drop, I take my fingers, rotate 1, 2, 3, and 3 is the magic number for many reasons that we can play with, but I will then take it anywhere. But most importantly, 1, 2, 3. And if I wanted to put it anywhere, this goes right up in 22 seconds. Most important, right? I know it's going to do the work, right? If I needed to sleep it's not the one I would choose. I would choose peace and calming. I might choose Rudavella. I might choose lavender. I might put all of them on. I might put a diffuser by me, ultrasonic, atomizing, so that the more there are nights in grief that some people are so exhausted they go out. They don't, but maybe they don't have a deep sleep. So you put on a little bit. But people who have trouble sleeping, like you said, insomnia, or if you have a history of it, or you can't get into a steady sleep deep enough to regenerate in the morning, and feel refreshed because you're still in that state, then nobody knows how much you need. Most friends of mine take, well, Judi, how many drops do you use of anything? 1, 2?
1 or 2.
Right. I use 10 or 15. My body soaks it up. I need it. I take ingestible ones, capsules every day so that I can walk. Oh, I said that. Zip it. So if deep grief, it may give you a little relief. It may not, depending on who you are and what you've practiced before that, and how much shock has locked in. So what one person with shock and another totally different, right? Look at your own family, the closest people to your child who's on the other side, and how each person handles it differently. Well, that tells you they don't need the same thing usually, do they? So daily, there are things that I would, she put on myYL.com/white
Well,
wolf.
we
Not supposed to do
really,
that.
we can't promote, and I really, we're talking about it in more terms
Right,
of a holistic nature. And Judi, if you could
exactly.
share how you use it when you do, the Shiomi, or what it brings to, your sessions.
One of the things about, our senses and our sense of touch, we touch the pressure points that directly connect to the chakras, the meridians, the vessels. So I have an energy centering meditation. I call the energy connecting meditation. And I use an oil and then put it on each pressure point. And when we do our meditation in the beginning of our healing circle every month, I guide you in that. And so it enhances, what we're doing. We have the aroma, we're touching the pressure point. For instance, I'm going here, the governing vessel treatment point is about staying present. The governing vessel goes down up our back and down to this point, and it helps us stay present. So if we're drifting into the past, into grief, or we're worrying about the future, or we're, on both sides of that, and we're not staying present, our governing vessel is either stuck or going backwards, and just holding it for 20 seconds. And like Nancy said, 22 seconds of an essential oil going into the brain, boom, it corrects it. It makes the governing vessel go forward. And the same with the conception vessel. That's our self-esteem when we're feeling low about ourselves. We hold that point. And I use the feelings kit because for the governing, there's an oil called present time. For the conception vessel, there's an oil called inner child. We're deserving, our inner child deserves to know, we all deserve to know who we really are from our first birth in the universe. So I do a little meditation with that. And for the base chakra and the crown chakra, I open up the heart with forgiveness to connect with gratitude of the earth and the sky and our source being. For release, there's an oil called release I use on the small intestine pressure point because it helps release the emotions very quickly. Thoughts that are scrambled and thoughts that we don't want to think about that keep coming back. Holding that point helps the digestion of the small intestine meridian, basically, and just helps release. So each one has a purpose. I use valor for the mental body. for strength and courage to be ourself. And we hold that pressure point. And it helps move our mental body around us clockwise. Because again, whenever we're in trauma, we're in a state of shock, our energy systems get stuck. They get stuck and they can go backwards. So holding a point, using the oils helps release it and move it forward. Nance?
Yeah, when you're talking about that, I realize that one of the things we do know is how much you love your children, right? And would love to feel their presence again. Love can be the bridge. Love is a very powerful bridge. It's the power. It's the bridge to the other side. And emotions that lower the frequency that is held because you need to connect, that need is, and this may sound ridiculous to you, but think of when you're frantically finding something you lost, a key, a wallet, anything. You're frantic. You never find it when you're frantic, do you? So that's the whole point of getting into a state that is not pushing emotions so powerfully that you cannot feel that your kid is knocking at the door and saying, hello, because they're right there as soon as you want, because they have that connection with you forever and ever. It's never lost, never lost. And every time you can connect, whatever has happened for them, there's a little 4-year-old who just died. He was born with a missing part in the heart and they did multiple surgeries and he was the most adorable little kid. Oh my gosh. And so he came right through and he said, he's laughing and he's saying, you all were so wonderful for me. I had the best time with you. Now you have to do what I came here to teach you. I knew I wouldn't stay long. And he's going on and he goes, well, I need them to hear me. And I say, saying, they need you to hear them and not stay. If it's recent, yeah, that's tough. But if it isn't that immediate, whatever you can do to get into a moment where there's freedom of putting aside for a moment how much you miss them. I know it's hard. I'm harder than anything most people ever have to do. But putting all that aside, what Judi is showing you are there are points in the body, there's music, there's oils, there's a whole bunch of ways to bring that rhythm back that connects you beautifully to your loved one. So well that you know they're there, so well that you feel their presence. I mean, I've done that with people I never met on the other side, the victims who gave me so many details and asked me if I would go through their what happened to them. And I said, sure, I'll take it on. If that relieves you, absolutely. And I've talked to their families and I'm still friends with many of them decades later that have been solved and finished and we know we're all safe. But that victim is no longer a victim. They're waiting for everybody to connect. So no matter what the purpose of having to leave, what circumstance, they're always there ready for you.
And you
They
know,
need
Nancy,
you.
I'd like to say something about this.
Good. Sure.
We each have a sense that's stronger than another sense. So some people are more auditory.
Mhm.
And when we're in this peaceful state, that's when you can hear your child talking to you.
Right.
Some people have a stronger sense of sight and clairvoyance, so they may see. And some may have more sense of sentient touch or feel, the feeling.
Everybody has it.
Everyone has it.
Everybody.
And some are
Everybody.
developed more strongly in others, but we can develop them all.
Everybody does. All you have to do, right.
And that's
Most
our
people don't.
extrasensory perceptions.
Well, the root of the word is soul.
Mhm.
Psychic means soul in Greek. That's where it comes from.
Beautiful.
So everyone
Beautiful.
has a
Wow.
soul, don't they? And I wasn't born able to play a violin well or play the drums well. I tried, I'd like to, but that's not my ability. I could play probably anything a little bit. So we all have a spectrum, but we won't know it until we let our souls take over.
Beautiful. Well,
That's it.
here we are, the top of the hour. And thank you,
Okay.
Nancy, for sharing your
Thank
wisdom
you.
and for coming on. Carol and
It's-
Lisa, thanks for helping me. Judi, as always, great to have you on a meeting. And we ask everyone to unmute themselves and to say thank you. And we will see you tomorrow. Hopefully you'll join Carol and
Thank
I,
you.
and maybe Lisa can join us in the afternoon. So good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank
you,
you,
Judy.
Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Judith.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good night.
You.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Good
everybody.
night.
Okay.